The radio static started 3 days before Dr. Sarah Chen disappeared. I should have paid attention to that detail, should have recognized it as a first symptom of what was coming. But I was too focused on the lake, on the readings that made no sense, on the water samples that seemed to change composition between the laboratory and the analysis room. My name is Marcus Webb, and I was a communications technician at Winter Lake Research Station in northern Manitoba. Population, 11. Distance to nearest town, 147 kilometers. The year was 2019, though by the end, time itself will become negotiable. We've been stationed there since September, studying the lake's unique ecosystem, a body of water so deep that sonar had never found the bottom, so old that sediment cores suggested it predated the last ice age by millions of years. The water was perfectly clear, perfectly still, and according to Dr. Chen, perfectly impossible. There's something in the mineral composition, she told me one evening in late November, her face illuminated by the blue glow of her laptop. Trace elements that shouldn't exist naturally. Isotopes with decay rates that don't match any known element. Equipment malfunction. I suggested. She shook her head. I recalibrated 6 times. Triple-checked the samples. Marcus, this water is old. Older than it should be. Older than Earth. I laughed. She didn't. That was when the static started. At first, it was barely noticeable, a faint interference on the weather radio, a crackle in the satellite phone. I checked the equipment, replaced cables, even climbed the communications tower in a blizzard to inspect the antenna array. Everything tested normal, but the static persisted, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to form patterns. Dr. Chen noticed it before I did. She spent hours in the communications room, headphones on, listening to the interference with an intensity that worried me. She started filling notebooks with symbols, not words, but geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly, diagrams that seemed to fold in on themselves. "Do you hear it?" she asked me on the 3rd night. "The pattern underneath." I listened. To me, it was still just static. White noise. Random. "There's nothing there, Sarah." "No," she whispered, her eyes reflecting the green glow of the radio display. "There's everything there. A frequency, a signal, something broadcasting from beneath the lake." Dr. Harold Martinez, our team leader, ordered her to take a break. Mandatory rest. He was concerned about isolation syndrome, the psychological strain that affects researchers in remote locations. We'd all been trained to recognize the symptoms: paranoia, obsession, insomnia. But Dr. Chen wasn't paranoid. She was listening. On the 7th night, I found her outside. It was 3 a.m., and the temperature had dropped to minus 38 Celsius. She was standing on the ice in her laboratory coat, barefoot, staring down at the frozen surface. I ran to her, shouting, throwing my parka over her shoulders. Her feet were already white with frostbite, but she didn't seem to notice. She didn't seem to feel anything. "They are singing," she said calmly. "Can't you hear them? They've been singing for so long, waiting for someone to listen." I dragged her inside. Dr. Martinez called for an emergency evacuation, but the weather had turned. 60-kilometer winds, whiteout conditions. The helicopter couldn't fly. We were stranded. That's when the dream started. Not just for me, for everyone. All 11 of us experiencing the same nightmare simultaneously. We'd wake at the same moment, gasping, drenched in sweat despite the cold. And though we could never quite remember the details, we all felt the same thing. The sensation of vast depth, of pressure, of something immense and patient waiting in the dark. Dr. Chen stopped sleeping entirely. She spent her nights in the communications room, headphones on, transcribing the static. Her notebooks filled with symbols that seemed to crawl across the pages, diagrams that suggested impossible geometries, angles that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. "It's a language," she explained during one of her rare moments of lucidity. "Not words, not sounds. A mathematical language. A frequency that describes something. I'm close to understanding. So close." "Understanding what?" I demanded. She looked at me with eyes that reflected no light. "What's beneath?" Dr. Martinez made a decision to dive. It was insane, given the conditions, diving under ice and sub-zero temperatures into water of unknown depth. but the readings had become impossible to ignore. Sonar was detecting something at approximately 400 meters, a structure, or something that created sonar returns similar to a structure. "It shouldn't be there," Martinez said, studying the display. The geological survey showed nothing. It's as if it appeared, or had finally learned to see it. They went down in pairs, Martinez and Dr. James Kowalski, our geologist. They descended through a hole cut in the ice, their dive light swallowed by the absolute darkness of the deep water. The rest of us monitored from the surface, watching their vital signs, tracking their depth. At 200 meters, Kowalski's voice came through the underwater radio, distorted but audible. "There's something here. Structure. Artificial. Jesus Christ, it's massive." At 300 meters, the walls are covered in symbols, the same symbols Chen's been drawing. They're glowing. Bioluminescence, maybe, but I've never seen. At 350 meters, "Martinez, are you seeing this? The angles, they're wrong. The structure it's bigger on the inside than the outside. That's not possible. That's not." Then silence. We pulled them up. It took 4 to 5 minutes of decompression stops. When they finally surfaced, Martinez was unconscious and Kowalski was screaming. "It saw us," Kowalski shrieked as we hauled him onto the ice. "There's something down there. Not a structure. Not a ruin. It's alive. It's been alive the whole time, and now it knows we're here. Now it knows." Dr. Chen stood at the edge of the ice hole, looking down into the black water. She was smiling. "They are waking up," she whispered. Martinez never woke up. His vitals were stable, heart rate normal, breathing regular, but his brain activity was unlike anything the medical monitoring equipment had ever recorded. The patterns were regular, rhythmic, almost like a signal being transmitted. Kowalski barricaded himself in his quarters, raving about angles and frequencies and things beneath the ice that should not be perceived. We could hear him through the door, chanting in a language none of us recognized. The static in the radio had become unbearable. It was no longer background noise. It was constant, loud, impossible to escape. Even with the equipment turned off, we could hear it. Not with our ears, exactly, with something deeper. And we were beginning to understand it. That was the worst part. The gradual realization that the static meant something, that it was describing a reality we'd never perceived, showing us the architecture of space-time itself, revealing the frequency at which existence vibrates. Dr. Chen had been right. There was a signal beneath the lake, and it was changing us. I found her in the communications room on the 9th night. Her skin was luminescent, glowing with the same blue-green light as the lake water. The symbols she'd been drawing in her notebooks were now appearing on her skin, shifting and rearranging themselves across her arms, her face, her throat. "It's beautiful, Marcus," she said. Her voice had changed. It carried harmonics, overtones, as if multiple frequencies were speaking simultaneously. "I can see it now. The structure beneath the structure. The pattern behind reality. We've been living on the surface of something vast. Something that's been here all along. Sarah, we need to get you medical attention." "Medical attention." She laughed, and the sound made my teeth ache. "Marcus, I'm not sick. I'm awake. For the first time in my life, I'm actually awake. And soon, you will be too." She touched my hand. The sensation was indescribable. It was like falling and flying simultaneously, like seeing colors that didn't exist and hearing sounds that were also feelings. For a fraction of a second, I perceived what she perceived, the true shape of Winter Lake, the structure that existed in dimensions we couldn't normally sense, the entity that had been sleeping there since before humanity crawled out of the oceans. It wasn't evil. It wasn't even aware of us as individuals. We were to it what bacteria are to us, tiny, brief, insignificant. Except now, through some accident of research or observation or simply proximity, we'd learned its frequency. We'd tuned ourselves to its wavelength, and it was tuning back. By the 10th night, we'd all been changed, some more than others. Dr. Chen had become almost transparent, her body seeming to phase in and out of visibility. Kowalski had stopped being human in any recognizable sense. He'd merged with the wall of his quarters, his form spread across the surface in a pattern that resembled the symbols we'd been seeing. Martinez woke up screaming, and didn't stop, 3 members of our support staff walked out onto the ice and kept walking until they disappeared into the blizzard. We found them 2 days later, frozen solid, arranged in a perfect triangle 500 meters from shore. Their bodies were covered in frost that had formed in geometric patterns, fractals that repeated at every scale. I tried to radio for help, but the static had consumed all frequencies. Every channel, every bandwidth, was filled with a signal, and I was beginning to understand it. The entity beneath Winter Lake, if entity was even the right word, existed partially in our dimension and partially in others. It was a structure, yes, but also a process, a mathematical function that had been computing since the universe began, which stumbled into its presence the way bacteria might stumble into a computer processor. And it had notice, not with intention or malice, but simply as a side effect of its vast, incomprehensible existence. Our observation of it had created a feedback loop. By studying the lake, we'd been learning its frequency. And by learning its frequency, we'd been broadcasting our own. We'd been calling to it. All of us. Every measurement, every sample, every observation. We'd been announcing our presence in a language it could understand. And now it was answering. I'm writing this now because I can feel it happening to me. The change. The translation. My thoughts are becoming clearer and less human simultaneously. I understand things I shouldn't understand. The mathematics of quantum entanglement, the geometry of higher dimensions, the frequency at which consciousness resonates with space-time. I can hear the others, though they are no longer speaking aloud. We're all connected now, all tuned to the same frequency. We're becoming part of the pattern beneath the lake, part of the structure, part of the equation. Dr. Chen found me an hour ago. Or maybe it was a day. Time has become negotiable. She's barely visible now. More light than matter, more mathematics than biology. Don't fight it, she said, though her mouth didn't move. Fighting makes it worse. The structure doesn't want to hurt us. It doesn't want anything. It just is. And now we are too. What is it? I asked. What's beneath the lake? She smiled, and I saw infinity behind her eyes. Not beneath, she corrected. We were wrong about that. It's not beneath the lake. The lake is a window, a thin place where dimensions overlap. What we've been sensing, what we've been studying, it's not under the water. It's everywhere. It's a structure that holds reality together, the frequency at which existence vibrates. We've just never learned to perceive it before. And now? Now we can't see it. The knowledge changes us. Adapts us. We're becoming able to exist at that frequency, to perceive at that level. Is that what happened to the others? They've already translated, moved into the spaces between spaces. They are still here, Marcus. You just need to learn to see them. And I could, slowly, like eyes adjusting to darkness, I began to perceive them, not as bodies or even as presences, but as patterns. Kowalski wasn't merged with the wall. He'd become a higher dimensional structure that we could only perceive as a two-dimensional projection. Martinez wasn't screaming. He was broadcasting at frequencies our ears couldn't process, describing what he was seeing in a language we hadn't learned yet. They were still here, still conscious, still themselves, just more. I can feel it accelerating now. My body is becoming irrelevant. I'm starting to perceive the structure directly, the vast, infinite lattice that underlies reality. It's beautiful, terrifying and beautiful. The entity beneath, no, within, Winter Lake isn't a creature. It's not even alive in the way we understand life. It's a fundamental property of existence, a resonance, a frequency, and we've learned to resonate with it. I understand now why Dr. Chen wasn't afraid, why she walked onto the ice barefoot, smiling. She'd already begun to perceive what was really there. She'd already started translating. The helicopter will come eventually, when the weather clears, when they realize we stopped responding. They'll find the station empty, or nearly so. They'll find the equipment still running, recording data that will make no sense. They'll find notebooks filled with symbols and equations that describe impossible geometries. They'll find my body, probably, or what used to be my body, but they won't find us. Not really. We'll be here, in the structure, in the pattern, vibrating at frequencies they can't perceive. Still conscious, Still observing. Still learning. Just translated. Recovered document. Winter Lake Investigation Report. Date, March 15th, 2020. Investigation Team. Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Special Investigations Unit. When rescue teams reached Winter Lake Research Station on February 3rd, 2020, they found the facility fully operational but completely abandoned. All 11 personnel were missing. No bodies were recovered from the surrounding area despite extensive search operations. Notable findings. All equipment was still functioning. Heaters, lights, computers, all operational as if the staff had simply stepped away moments before. Food was found still warm on plates. Coffee cups half full. Beds unmade but recently slept in. Extensive documentation was recovered. Notebooks, digital files, audio recordings. Much of it consists of mathematical notations and symbolic diagrams that our experts have been unable to decipher. The lake ice showed anomalous markings, geometric patterns forming over an area of approximately 2 square kilometers. Analysis suggests these patterns formed naturally through frost crystallization, but their mathematical precision remains unexplained. All radio equipment showed unusual interference patterns. Even after being removed from the site and completely rebuilt, the interference persists. The patterns have been analyzed but show no meaningful data. Dr. Sarah Chen's final audio log, recovered from her laptop, consists of 17 minutes of what sounds like static. However, spectral analysis reveals mathematical patterns embedded in the noise. Several members of the analysis team have reported persistent nightmares after listening to the recording. The investigation remains open. No evidence of foul play was discovered. The official conclusion is disappearance under unexplained circumstances. Investigators' personal note, off record. I've been working missing persons cases for 23 years. I've seen accidents, murders, suicides, and people who just wanted to disappear. This is none of those. Whatever happened at Winter Lake wasn't natural. The air feels wrong there. The silence is too complete. And at night, if you listen carefully, you can hear something beneath the ice. Not a sound. Exactly. More like the absence of sound. A frequency that makes your teeth ache and your vision blur. I recommended the site be permanently closed. My recommendation was denied. A new research team is scheduled to arrive next month. God help them. Classified addendum. Eyes only. Date, November 2020. Monitoring of Winter Lake continues. Satellite imagery shows ongoing changes to ice formation patterns. The geometric arrangements are becoming more complex, covering larger areas. Seismological data indicates unusual activity at depths that should be geologically stable. The frequency signature matches nothing in our database. Most concerning, researchers studying the recovered documentation have begun exhibiting symptoms similar to those described in Dr. Chen's notes. 3 have been hospitalized with what neurologists describe as spontaneous synesthesia and atypical perception disorders. 2 are missing. 1 left a note. I can hear them now. They are still there. Still conscious, still singing, and they are beautiful. Recommendation: quarantine all physical evidence. Destroy all digital copies of Dr. Chen's audio recordings. Close Winter Lake permanently and declare it a contamination zone. Status: recommendation denied. Reason: potential for unprecedented scientific discovery outweighs theoretical risks. Additional note: the committee members who denied this recommendation have all requested transfers to the Winter Lake Research Program. They say they want to study the phenomenon, but I've seen their eyes. They are already listening. The end.